My name is Jardina, and I am 28 years old.
The dinner was supposed to be romantic. That's what he said when he suggested it, when he picked the place, when he told me to wear something nice. Giovanni's was one of those restaurants people save for anniversaries or celebrations, dim lighting, cloth napkins, candles flickering just enough to make everything feel intentional. I arrived a few minutes early. He was already there, seated, wearing a jacket I hadn't seen before, like he was dressing for something after. We ordered wine, appetizers, the whole performance. The conversation stayed light at first, surface-level updates about work, about people we both knew. It didn't feel like two people who'd spent 2 years building a relationship. It felt like two people trying very hard not to touch anything real. I noticed he kept checking his phone and turning it face down. I noticed the way he smiled at things he wasn't sharing.
Halfway through the main course, he leaned back in his chair, wine glass in hand, expression shifting into something confident and testing. "I need to tell you something," he said. I set my fork down. "My ex-girlfriend reached out last week," he continued. "She said she made a mistake. She told me she'd take me back tomorrow if I wanted." He watched my face closely as he said it, like he was waiting for panic or jealousy to appear on cue. "And I've been thinking about it," he added. "We had something real. 3 years doesn't just disappear." I kept my voice neutral. "So why are you telling me this?" He leaned forward. "Because I need to make a decision. I need to know if staying with you is the right choice." Then he said the sentence that ended everything. "She told me she'd take me back tomorrow. Give me one reason not to leave you for her." The noise of the restaurant faded. Glasses clinked. A couple at the next table laughed. And suddenly I saw the entire situation for what it was. This dinner was never about honesty. It was about control. He wanted me to scramble, to list my qualities, to beg him to choose me, so he could feel wanted by 2 women at once. I picked up my napkin, wiped my mouth, and set it on the table. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out my wallet, and counted exact bills for my half of the meal, plus tip. I placed them neatly on the white tablecloth between us. He frowned. "What are you doing?" I looked at him calmly. "Can you give me one reason I should stay at all?" His smile faltered. "What?" "You just told me you're considering leaving me for your ex," I said. "You brought me here to see if I'd fight for you. So I'm asking you, why should I stay in a relationship where I'm treated like an option?" He started to speak, stammered, tried to backpedal. "I was just being honest. I thought we could talk about it." "We just did," I said as I stood. "If you're not sure you want to be here, then you're already gone." I pushed my chair back and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard his voice rise. "Wait, where are you going? We're not done." I didn't turn around. I stepped out into the cold night air, pulled out my phone, and ordered a ride home. The bill I paid that night was $37. It was the best money I ever spent. The text started before my ride even reached my apartment. At first, they were confused, like he genuinely believed I'd come to my senses if he just kept talking. "Where did you go? Are you serious right now? Pick up." Then the tone shifted into anger, the kind that comes when someone realizes their little test didn't work. "You embarrassed me. You always do this. You shut down and run. You completely overreacted." I watched the messages stack up without replying. I didn't feel shaky or dramatic. I felt clear, like a fog had lifted, and what remained was just the truth. When I got home, I didn't pace. I didn't replay the dinner 100 times looking for the moment I could have handled differently. I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and sat on my couch in silence. The quiet felt earned. I had been living in a relationship that required me to constantly prove I was worth choosing, even when no one had said it out loud. Now he had finally said it out loud, and I had finally responded with something other than patience. An hour later, he sent another wave. The tone changed again, softer, almost pleading. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to be honest. Can we talk? Then he tried the rewrite that always comes when someone realizes they pushed too far. She isn't even serious. It was just a conversation. I needed to know where we stand. I stared at that last one for a long time, because it was the most honest thing he'd said all night, just not in the way he meant it. He did need to know where we stood. He needed to know if he could threaten me with another woman's approval and still keep me at the table. He found out. By Saturday morning, my phone had 43 notifications, most from him, a few from his close friend, the one who always played mediator when things got tense. He didn't mean it. He's really upset. Can you please just talk to him? I didn't respond to any of it. I wasn't interested in being talked into lowering my standards.
I wasn't interested in being managed back into the version of myself that stayed quiet to keep the relationship alive. Sunday evening, my phone rang from a number I recognized. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th call, I answered. His voice was tight, strained, already rehearsed. I want to explain. I kept my tone calm. Explain what? Friday was a mistake, he said quickly. I shouldn't have brought up my ex-girlfriend like that. I was confused. I thought being honest would help us figure things out. Honest, I repeated. You ambushed me with an ultimatum. It wasn't an ultimatum, he snapped, then softened immediately, hearing how sharp he sounded. I needed to know you cared. I needed to know you actually wanted me. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so revealing. If you need me to beg you to stay, then we don't stand anywhere, I said. I'm not going to convince you to choose me. You either want this or you don't. I do, he said fast. Too fast. I want us. I made a mistake. She doesn't even want me back. She was just talking. There it was. The truth buried under the emotion. He wasn't calling because he realized he'd hurt me. He was calling because his safety net had snapped. The ex-girlfriend wasn't a real option, and now he was scrambling to pull me back into place before he had to sit alone with the consequences. I let the silence stretch long enough that he started breathing harder on the other end. I'm sorry that did not work out for you, I said quietly, but I'm not your backup plan. Jardina, please, he whispered. Just talk to me. Give me a chance to fix it. You already fixed it, I replied. You showed me exactly how you think love works. Like a competition. Like I'm supposed to audition for my place in your life. That's not what I meant. It's what you did, I said, my voice steady. And you don't get to undo that just because you don't like the outcome. He started to cry then, or at least his voice broke in a way that sounded like tears. I didn't think you'd actually leave. And that sentence told me everything. He truly believed I'd stay. He believed my patience was permanent. He believed the relationship would survive whatever ego test he threw at it, because I had always been the stable one, the understanding one, the one who absorbed discomfort so we could keep moving. I wasn't doing that anymore. I'm done, I said softly. Take care. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I blocked him on social media. Then I went into my email and set up a filter so anything from him would be automatically deleted before I ever saw it. I didn't want crumbs. I didn't want apologies that came with conditions. I wanted peace. 3 days later, I got it. At 11 p.m. on Wednesday, my doorbell rang. The doorbell rang at 11:07 p.m., sharp and insistent, like whoever was on the other side was afraid that if they waited too long, the courage would evaporate. I was already in pajamas, hair pulled back, the apartment quiet in that late-night way, where every sound feels amplified. I didn't have to look through the peephole to know it was him. Still, I did. He stood there with his shoulders slumped, eyes red, wearing a jacket I recognized from 100 ordinary nights we'd spent together. He looked smaller somehow, not wounded, just exposed. I stood there longer than I should have, weighing something that felt heavier than anger. Curiosity won. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. You have 5 minutes, I said, and you're not coming in. He nodded too quickly, like he was grateful for crumbs. I know you blocked me, he said, voice shaking. I know you don't want to talk, but I needed you to hear this. He took a breath that sounded practiced. I made a terrible mistake. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Go on. He told me the story he'd clearly rehearsed all week, how his ex-girlfriend had reached out first, how it stirred up old feelings, how he panicked, how he thought testing us would somehow make things clearer. He admitted he'd been talking to her for months, that it started as catching up and turned into something he didn't fully understand until it was already out of control. He said the words like he expected them to soften the damage. They didn't. You didn't test us, I said quietly. You tested me. He winced. I didn't think you'd leave. There it is, I replied. That's the part you keep skipping. He shook his head, tears finally spilling. I love you. I always loved you. I felt something then, but it wasn't the ache he probably hoped for. It was distance. Clean, unmistakable distance. You loved the version of me that stayed, I said. The one who made it easy for you to feel wanted without asking you to choose. He tried to step closer. I didn't move, but I didn't have to. The boundary was already there. She doesn't even want me, he said suddenly, desperation bleeding through the confession. I told her about us, about the dinner, and she laughed. She said she never promised anything. She said she just wanted to see if I still cared. I nodded slowly. So now you're here? Yes, he said, like it proved something. No, I corrected. Now you're alone.
He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Please," he whispered, "give me one more chance. I'll block her. I'll do whatever you want. I'll prove it."
"That's the problem," I said. "I don't want to manage your loyalty. I don't want to be the reason you behave." Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. From somewhere down the hall, an elevator dinged. A door opened and closed. Life kept moving, indifferent to the moment he thought would save him.
"I can't sleep," he said. "I can't eat. I can't stop thinking about you."
I believed him. Regret can be loud like that. "What you're feeling isn't love," I said gently. "It's the shock of losing control."
His shoulders sagged. "So that's it." "That's it," I confirmed. I closed the door before he could say anything else. Not slammed it, just closed it, clicked the lock, and leaned my forehead against the wood for a brief second. My hands were steady. My breathing was steady. Whatever part of me used to be pulled by tears and apologies had gone quiet. 20 minutes later, the hallway was silent again. The next morning, I woke up to messages from mutual friends. Confusion, concern. "He's not okay. He's really hurting." I didn't respond. I wasn't responsible for cushioning the fall of someone who'd pushed me out of the way to see if something shinier would catch him.
By the end of the week, the story started leaking out without me lifting a finger. His ex-girlfriend had a boyfriend, a serious one. She'd never planned on going back. She just wanted to know if she still had him. When that reality set in, the tone of the messages changed. Less accusation, more silence. And in that silence, something solid took root. I wasn't missing him.
I was missing the version of myself who didn't know she deserved better. The truth has a way of surfacing on its own once you stop standing in front of it. I didn't go looking for updates. I didn't ask mutual friends for explanations or details. I focused on small, grounding things instead. Morning runs, cooking meals that didn't revolve around anyone else's schedule, rearranging my apartment so it no longer felt like a place someone might come back to. I moved the couch. I replaced the sheets. I deleted the photos that had been quietly daring me to romanticize a version of us that never really existed, but information still found its way to me. A week after he stood outside my door crying, Marcus ran into me at the gym. He hesitated before speaking, like he wasn't sure if he should say anything at all. "You hear what happened at work?" he asked. I shook my head. "There's more," he said, and then he told me. The ex-girlfriend wasn't single. She had a boyfriend. Had had one the entire time. When the blurred lines at work finally came into the light, it wasn't subtle. Her boyfriend showed up at the office unannounced, walked straight past reception, and found them together in a conference room. Voices were raised, accusations flew, coffee was thrown, security got involved, HR followed, emails were pulled, late-night messages, after-hours meetings, dinners that were supposed to be about clients but never included anyone else. Patterns became impossible to ignore. The fallout was immediate. My ex was moved to another team. The ex-girlfriend was encouraged to take time off to reflect. Corporate language for "we see this and we're done protecting you." Marcus finished the story and watched my face carefully. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. And it was true. That night, my phone buzzed with a new number. I didn't answer. The message came anyway. "I didn't know," he wrote. "I swear, she never told me." I stared at the screen for a moment, then locked my phone and set it face down. It didn't matter whether he knew or not. He'd already shown me how easily he could be pulled by attention that wasn't grounded in commitment. The next few weeks were quiet in the way that feels intentional rather than empty. He tried again once, then stopped. Friends stopped mentioning him. Invitations came back. Laughter returned without effort. I realized how much emotional energy I'd been spending trying to keep someone convinced of my worth. One evening, I was out with friends when I ran into her boyfriend. Not the ex-girlfriend. Him. We recognized each other immediately. There was a moment of awkward stillness. Then he nodded once and said, "I'm sorry, that was it. No drama, no explanation, just acknowledgement." He paid for my drink and walked away. It felt like a clean ending to a story I hadn't asked to be part of. At home, later that night, I looked around my apartment and noticed something small but important. I wasn't waiting for my phone to light up. I wasn't replaying conversations in my head. I wasn't wondering what I could have done differently. The silence wasn't something to endure anymore. It was something to enjoy. I understood then that I hadn't lost anything. I'd gained clarity. The dinner, the ultimatum, the tears at my door. None of it was about love. It was about insecurity and control and the fear of being alone. And once I stepped out of that equation, the whole thing collapsed on its own. I didn't need to explain myself.
The truth was already doing that for me. A few months passed, and something surprising happened. Nothing dramatic, nothing explosive. Life just steadied.
The emotional static I'd lived with for 2 years faded so gradually I didn't notice it at first. Then one morning, I realized I'd gone an entire week without thinking about him, not wondering what he was doing, not replaying the dinner, not imagining alternate endings, just living inside my own head again, uninterrupted. Friends stopped asking careful questions. They stopped gauging my mood before bringing his name up, because his name stopped coming up at all. When it did, it felt distant, like a story I'd once read but couldn't fully remember. Someone mentioned he'd moved apartments again. Someone else said he'd been keeping to himself. The same phrase people use when someone's ego takes a hit and they don't know how to rebuild it without an audience. I focused on my work, not obsessively, healthily. I took on a project I'd been avoiding because it required visibility and leadership. I stopped shrinking in meetings, stopped softening my opinions so no one would feel threatened. A month later, my manager told me they'd noticed the change. Not in my performance, in my confidence. That word stayed with me. Around that time, I met Noah, not in a dramatic way. No sparks flying across the room or instant chemistry that demanded a story. We met through friends at a casual dinner. He sat across from me, asked thoughtful questions, listened without interrupting, and didn't try to impress me by talking over me. When the night ended, he asked if I'd like to get coffee sometime. No pressure, no performance. On our third date, he invited me to a work dinner. I hesitated without meaning to. Old reflex. "You sure?" I asked. "I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable." He laughed, genuinely confused. "Why would you make anyone uncomfortable?" he said. "You're my girlfriend. I want you there." It was such a simple sentence. No testing, no comparison, no hidden meaning, just inclusion. Sitting beside him that night, surrounded by people who treated my presence as a given, I felt something click into place. The dinner months earlier hadn't been the beginning of the end. It had been the moment I finally listened to myself. I thought about the bill I'd paid that night at the Italian restaurant. $37. Exact change. No drama, no scene. That small, quiet act had bought me something priceless. Clarity, dignity, a future where I wasn't auditioning for a role I already deserved. I never heard from him again. Not directly. And I didn't need to. People like him always rewrite the ending so they don't have to sit with the truth. I'd overreacted. I'd been too sensitive. That was fine. Let him believe that. I knew the truth. I didn't walk away because of one comment. I walked away because I finally stopped underreacting to a pattern that was draining me slowly. I walked away because I refused to compete with a ghost from someone else's past. I walked away because love isn't a test, and anyone who treats it like one isn't ready to give it. Some people teach you what you won't tolerate. Some moments change your entire trajectory. And some dinners end not with dessert, but with self-respect. The thing no one tells you about walking away is how quiet the aftermath is. Not empty, quiet, the kind that lets you hear yourself think again. After months passed, I stopped measuring time by what he might be doing or whether a message would appear. I stopped bracing when my phone buzzed. I stopped explaining the story to new people like it needed justification. It didn't. The explanation had already happened in action. I noticed it in small moments first. Standing in line for coffee and realizing I wasn't replaying the dinner in my head, sitting on my couch at night without that low-level anxiety humming under my skin, choosing plans based on what I wanted instead of what would keep the peace. Those were the changes that mattered, not the big declarations or the dramatic exits. Noah and I didn't rush anything. That felt important. We built something slowly, on purpose. When disagreements came up, they were about real things, schedules, boundaries, energy, not about whether I was enough or whether someone else might be more exciting. He never compared me to anyone, never hinted that I should compete for his attention. The absence of that pressure felt like learning how to breathe properly after years of shallow air. One night, months later, we were sitting on the floor of my apartment sorting through old paperwork. I found the receipt from that dinner, folded into a notebook I hadn't touched in a while. $37, dated, stamped, unremarkable. I held it up and laughed softly. Noah looked over. "What's funny?" he asked. I told him that was the moment everything changed. Not the shouting, not the tears, just the choice to stand up, pay my share, and leave. "That's not dramatic," he said. "Exactly," I replied. "That's why it worked." I thought about my ex once in a while.
but not with anger. More like curiosity, the way you wonder how someone ends up exactly where their patterns lead them. I heard through the grapevine that he still told people the same story, that I'd overreacted, that it was just one comment, that I walked out without giving him a chance. He needed that version. It protected him from having to look at the bigger picture. I didn't need to correct it, because the truth had already rearranged my life in ways his narrative never could. I was calmer, more grounded, less willing to negotiate my worth. I caught myself speaking up sooner when something felt off, leaving earlier when a situation drained me, choosing people who chose me back without hesitation. That's the thing about boundaries. Once you set one, it teaches you how to recognize the next moment you'll need it. It sharpens your instincts. It reminds you that discomfort is not something you're required to tolerate in the name of love. I used to think strength looked like endurance, staying, making it work, being patient long past the point where patience turned into self-erasure. Now I know strength can look like standing up quietly, paying your part, and walking out without waiting for permission. I didn't lose a relationship that night. I gained clarity. I gained myself, and I gained the kind of peace that doesn't need anyone else's approval to exist. Some people will always frame your boundaries as cruelty because they benefited from you having none. Let them. I closed one door and didn't look back, and everything on the other side finally opened.